Hey everybody, happy Sunday or whatever day it may be when or if you do see this. Please check out CariniArts.com for my shop, my blog, and all my upcoming show information. Welcome to my Art Talks live and free here on YouTube. I try to provide artist support by just sharing my experiences. And today I want to dive into what are the best social media platforms for artists. And so I'm curious. I would love for other people to join in this conversation. And it's Sunday. I'm so tired, so like my words may not come out properly. But I swear, my brain is functioning. The words just don't come out. So just proof that all of my stuff is unscripted, candid, and very raw. So I'm not trying to project or portray this image of grandiose superiority. I am not an influencer by any means. I'm just a dude that is struggling through the day, but sharing his experiences because I think that is valuable as well. But I do want to know which platforms work for you and what your thoughts are on them. And then I'm going to do a run through of all the different platforms and sort of my personal experiences with them. But just know that my experience with him doesn't have to be your experience with him because what works for one artist doesn't work for another artist. And what doesn't work for one artist may work for another. And what doesn't work at one time may work at another time and vice versa. But I am a big believer in planting seeds in different pots, so to speak, and just sort of diversifying your repertoire in what you're doing. And I think that that's imperative in terms of building sustainability as an artist. And is one of the key elements of what I've done. But I'm also having to make this educated decision and take calculated risks because I do recognize that social media takes a lot of time. I put several hours into it every single day, pretty much no days off unless there's like a weird day where I'm just really not feeling good. And that's the only time that I'll really take a break from social media, and it's only for a day, if even. But there are definitely different avenues you can take. And, I'm curious, because if you have something that works for you, I'm curious to know maybe on some of the platforms that I'm struggling with, what you're doing that could maybe work for me. So I'm gonna share my thoughts and my experiences in the hopes of maybe helping you. So I guess we should start off with probably what I would say is the biggest, and that would be Facebook. So on Facebook, I have a personal page. However, I like to say that I am my art and my art is me. So my personal page is really just me kind of pushing my art for the most part because that's what I do. That's who I am. So I'm not going to try to portray an image of something that I'm not, which is something that a lot of people try to do on social media. But it's interesting because I also have an art page and I also have a group page. So I want to talk about each of those individually. So personal page, I find that sometimes people may actually respond better there than they do on my art page, even though my art page has more than 10 times as many followers. And it's because with your personal page, those are people that generally know you or know of you a little closer. I mean, granted, I technically am about at the max of friends there, and the truth is that I probably have like half a friend. So I don't know that that is an accurate assessment per se. But I think that just because it's a bit more organic, and sometimes if it's less pitchy, that people are more responsive. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about how if something says sponsored on it, if a post says sponsored, no matter how good it is, a lot of times we will both just pass by it simply for the fact that it is sponsored. Something has to be absolutely amazing that is sponsored for me to stop and not kind of neglect it just because of the fact that we know that somebody's paying for advertising. So that's kind of a weird psychological thing. Now, on my art page, I would say that that is my currently most successful platform. It's not the platform where I have the most followers, but certain platforms have become a bit more obsolete over time. And so I would say that it is my most active platform. And I'm at about 50,000 people there. And sometimes I'll post things and I'll get zero engagement. And sometimes I'll post things and I'll get a lot of engagement. But it does definitely have the most potential, I would say, for me to reach people. Now, one of the obstacles that I've run into in having an art page is that I like to share and post to a lot of Facebook groups. Now, a lot of the Facebook groups will not allow pages, art pages, to be a part of their group or to post in their group. And my thought on that is that those are not groups that truly support the arts. Because how can you say that you support the arts and you support the hobbyists that are trying to do it, but the people that are really taking a chance in their life, in their passion, to go after their dream, a lot of those people have a page, whether it be a business page or an art page or whatever it may be. But to deny them the ability to post in your group says that, yeah, I support the arts, but only to the point that you don't exceed a certain level. So I feel like those are people that don't want you to pass or supersede them. They want you to feel like, yeah, you can do this, but just not to a point where it makes me feel uncomfortable is kind of my perception of that. And I'm sure there's different cases where that's not quite the scenario, but that's kind of the vibe that it gets off because I was recently removed from several groups, my most popular groups where I did very, very well because of the fact that they realized that, oh, he's an art page. We can't have him there. Well, if you support the arts and I'm a one person business, so essentially it is me, what is the difference between a personal page and an art page? Why would you punish me for having an art page? Because this is how I make my living. So now this is how I make my living, and you don't want allow me to be a part of your group. That just does not make sense to me whatsoever. Which brings me to the group that I have. So I have a group on Facebook called A Safe Space for Artists of All Types. And I don't care if you're a personal page, I don't care if you are a business page, as long as you are not spamming the high holy shit out of the page, I don't care. And then there's only a couple rules, and one of the rules is like, don't be a turd. And that's literally the rule, don't be a turd. Basically, if you don't like something, move on and just ignore it, but don't make shitty comments to other people that are putting themselves out there and trying to share what they want. Because I do see a lot of trolls and a lot of negative people out there. And I run into it too. And it becomes, even at my level, it becomes, and not that I am better, but I do this for a living. And this is all that I do. So uh, even as somebody that does this for a living, it still hurts to see that. And it's amazing how powerful just one negative comment can be when you get a lot of supportive people, but that one negative comment can really kind of ruin your day sometimes. So sometimes you have to learn to ignore the comments, but you also want to pay attention to the comments because those could be prospective buyers, clients, people interested in your work. I do find that organic is the best route to go, and in the past, I have definitely experimented with advertising on both Facebook and Instagram. And the truth is I feel like I almost was punished later on for that because it did sort of build my following to an extent, but then the people that followed me later on didn't necessarily engage with my stuff as much as the people that had organically followed me, and therefore I felt like the algorithms then started to punish me. And the other thing is that it used to be that for every dollar you spent on Facebook and Instagram, you'd reach around like 1,000 plus people, and then it dropped to around 100 people, so about a tenth of the results. And I think that in some cases it's even lower than that. So it feels like they kind of sucked you in like a drug and then weaned you off once they got you hooked. And so I've kind of taken the approach now of not paying for advertising. I just focus on minimizing the overhead and the organic because there was a time where I was dropping a lot of money into the ads. And the truth is there's so many different options, so many different settings that it was a bit too neurotic for me. It almost started to make me sick because I was always trying to pay attention to that and then doing A/B testing and having to check on that and pay attention to all of that. So those are my thoughts on Facebook. But I am curious if you've had a different experience. I do get a lot of orders from Facebook. The ability to connect my Shopify store to there has been tremendously helpful. Not that I know that people definitely traffic over from there, but that has ultimately been my experience. And I would say that Facebook has been my most successful platform to date, and it feels like it's one that's here to stay. Platforms come and go, and who knows what could happen on any given day. And that's one of the reasons why I talked about diversifying and making sure that I have these other platforms. So at any point, if one of these does shut down, that I do have something else going on. And the other possibility is of getting blocked or banned. And I have been suspended a number of times, and I don't even know why I've been suspended. It made no sense. It always says that it's a community violation, but I talk about mental health on my page. I talk about supporting other artists. I talk about encouraging other artists and not tearing down people. So I don't know what community violations I'm committing. Oftentimes they won't give you an answer. And if you try to contact support, it's generally artificial intelligence, very sophisticated, high level artificial intelligence that you're talking to. So you're not even talking to real people. or people that care that this is all that you do and that this is your business and your livelihood. So that can sometimes lead to some interesting rabbit holes that you can fall down. But I feel like the most logical transition from Facebook is to then go to Instagram. And one of the reasons why I think both Facebook and Instagram are great for artists, visual artists in particular, is because they're visually based platforms. You can include descriptions, but they're very much visually based. They allow for tagging and, in that regard, visibility. But the algorithms are always changing. So even with as many followers as I have on these platforms, sometimes my posts seem to only reach a couple hundred people, which doesn't make sense. If I have 50,000 followers on one platform and 20,000 on another, how is it that I only reach 400 people? And maybe it's because of the lack of engagement. And I do post a lot. So that could be one of my dilemmas too. But with this being all that I do, I feel that it's necessary for me to post a lot. And also because I'm creating a lot and I want people to see what I'm doing. And in many cases, these platforms house my portfolio of sorts because it's too hard to maintain all of these things on my website. So we can talk about websites another day, or maybe later on in this. But again, anybody joining in, share your thoughts on the platforms that work for you. What does, what doesn't, because what doesn't could be just as valuable. But I want to hear from you too and hear your feedback. But Instagram, so I'm at 20,000 on Instagram. And I do like Instagram, but I don't necessarily post as much there because it seems like you get punished a little more for posting there frequently, more so than I do on Facebook. And with the amount of followers that I have on Instagram, that I think even more than Facebook, I struggle with reach. So with 20,000 followers, a lot of times I'll post and I'll only reach like a couple hundred people, or I'll post a reel that I put a lot of work into, and somehow my reel only reaches like 150 people. But then I'll do another reel, and that reel will reach 3,000 people or something like that. So there's really not a rhyme or a reason to it. So I suppose it may come down to engagement or something that I'm not aware of. But I do like Instagram, and I do generate a lot of business from Instagram. I also love the stories feature from Instagram, and the fact that I can then share them directly to my Facebook art page. So I find that to be beneficial. Now, in terms of live feeds, I like to do the live feeds on Facebook because I get much more engagement there. I used to do live feeds on Instagram and get a fair amount of engagement, and then that dropped off significantly to the point that nobody was seeing it. So it didn't make sense for me to really continue doing that. So I really only do the live feeds here on YouTube and on Facebook. But I generate a lot of business, I would say, from Instagram. I would say about as much, maybe even more on Instagram than on Facebook, because sometimes the posts are a little simpler with Instagram. Maybe it'll be a single photo as opposed to like a photo montage or something of that nature. So I'm curious because the reaction I get from people sometimes varies. So sometimes I'll post things on all the different platforms and get consistent response from one, and then it'll shift up to being consistent response from another. But I think part of it also is that different people have their preferred platforms as viewers. So if you post say only on one platform, you may be missing part of your audience because they only look at something on another platform. And there are so many to like, as I'm talking to you, I'm writing down the platforms that I've talked about, but I'm also remembering platforms that I neglected to write down. Even there's so many platforms, so it can get overwhelming to post on all these platforms because it's just so much work. And unless you're willing to invest hours into this every day, uh, it's certainly a conundrum, and it can certainly get in your head. And I feel that a lot of us feel the weight of like, oh, I gotta post, and then feeling the weight of having to post on all these different platforms. It can be tremendously overwhelming. So Instagram and Facebook, I would say, are definitely the two most successful that I currently have, though, in terms of engagement, in terms of generating sales and viewership. Now, I guess a logical transition from here would be another biggie, and that would be Twitter. So Twitter, I neglected for a long time, and I've never done tremendously well on there, which kind of surprises me because a lot of times I'll do written posts, and I feel like some of my writing is of decent quality, and I'm actually, I would say, almost known as much or even more so for my writing than my art. But my response on Twitter is very minimal, and maybe it's just because I haven't had something that really grew my audience initially, and so I'm just kind of stuck in this spot where, because of my limited viewership, that it's not going to blow up as exponentially as maybe some of the other platforms. I'm only at like 400 and some odd people on Twitter, but I still like it. because of some of the things I can share on there that are a little bit different, more writing based things, short little blurbs, links. I find that the links actually do better on Twitter than they do on Facebook. People hate links on Facebook. I'll try to share this video after I'm done with it, and people just won't want to click on it because if it's not an embedded video, then they don't want to click on it. So that's an interesting thing that I've found about Facebook, and I feel like if you start to post things on one of these platforms that people don't respond to, that then the algorithm picks up on that, and then your stuff starts to reach fewer people. So that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to be conscious of these things without overthinking it, which I clearly am based on just this conversation alone. But I do like Twitter. I think Twitter can be fun, and I've gotten back to Twitter recently. So one that is kind of obsolete, but that I like still is Tumblr. I used to do super well on Tumblr back in the day, back in 2012, 2013 when I started it, because you could tag things with certain tags, and the gatekeepers, the curators, which were the people, the actual people, like people would be appointed to be curators. So Tobias from Canvy. Do I think YouTube is for all artists? Not all artists, but I don't think any of these platforms are for all artists. I think we all need to know really what we excel in and what people are responding to. But sometimes the things that we are not so good at are the things that we need to work on. So sometimes I try to focus on my deficiencies. So so I'll be honest with you, Tobias. Um, I rarely get viewers on my live feeds here on YouTube. I rarely get any. I think you might be the first person in like 30 videos that I've done that actually asked me a question, but this is what I'm going for. So a lot of times I'm putting in the work, hoping that people will start responding like, see, like this is nice, like to have a dialogue here, like a back and forth. This is the whole reason that I love doing the live feeds. It's because I want to be an artist support system and help people, somebody that lifts people up, and to have these conversations. And I would love if we could get more people, because if not just you, and I'm so thankful to have you, but if we could get like a whole group of people on here and we could have a whole conversation here, that would be a really wonderful, valuable thing. And then I think people would be more inclined to want to share that. So my goal in doing these videos, even though a lot of times I'll have one or zero people on here, this being one of my least successful platforms, but one I'm working on, is the hope that it will grow and that people will share it. And the thing that I do love about YouTube and that could be helpful for artists is that if I eventually do have one video that really takes off here on YouTube and people start to share it and it blows up, I've already done 30, 40 live feeds talking about different topics, how to price your art, how to do this, how to do that. And then once that video takes off, people will see all the other videos that I've done. So I've done all this work even when I wasn't necessarily having a response. And then people can find all those videos so it really can blow up. And that's what I was thinking before this video, is that I really do see a lot of value in doing these YouTube talks and things like that for that reason. So even if I'm just coming on here and I'm having a conversation with the mirror, talking to myself and nobody's here, YouTube is great in that it houses the videos in a very share friendly platform that people can rewatch, they can post later, you can share it to the other platforms. And so it has the potential for growth and for people to find you later on. So, in terms of a history building platform that is kind of here to stay, I think that YouTube has great value in that regard. And so I'm going to come back to YouTube again in a minute, but I did want to shift back to Tumblr real quick. So back in 2012, 2013-ish, the curators were just people that managed pages such as myself. I wasn't a curator myself, but people like me. And so if you private message them and said, hey, look, if you could share my work, or you tag the right things and they would find you, you could grow. So I grew from like 0 followers to around 75,000 followers very quickly. So I blew up on Tumblr. And the other cool thing about Tumblr was that if you tag things appropriately and the curators liked you, you would end up on the Tumblr radar. And the radar was essentially when you would go to log into Tumblr, your stuff would be on the home page. So imagine if you were logged out of Facebook and you went to the Facebook website and you saw your work on the home page for Facebook. That's what Tumblr did. Tumblr was freaking badass. It was the coolest place to be, and you could post anything and everything. It was like the wild, wild west. And then Yahoo bought it out and took over, and then you could no longer post porn, and then everybody disappeared because the porn disappeared. So I still post there. The engagement is significantly less there now because there's just not as many people interacting. But recently I started getting back on the Tumblr radar. So I don't know if I figured something out or caught what was trending or whatever, but I ended up on the radar like 3 or 4 more times just in the past couple months. And that started to grow my following on there again. Not as fast as it used to. It used to be that you'd end up on the Tumblr radar and you'd like grow like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 followers, if not more. And you'd get tons of views. And like I have a post on there that at one point had well over 100,000 likes and shares. So just tremendous visibility, and it cost absolutely nothing. And then at one point, you could actually pin stuff to the top of people's pages, or you could like boost certain posts of yours. But it wasn't like Facebook. It was done in such a cool and beneficial way. It didn't feel like the type of marketing that Facebook and Instagram do. So I'm really bummed that that didn't survive the test of time because I thought that it was so much fun. So let's go to ChapSnap or Snapchat, should I say? And so that's an interesting one. So now they're trying to kind of emulate TikTok and these other platforms, and even YouTube, because you can post shorts now on YouTube, which I do like. I really like that, and we'll talk about that when I get back to YouTube. But Snapchat, you can post like featured or spotlight posts, and that's I was doing that for a bit, and it would get like a couple hundred views, but it didn't seem to grow anything. And you could have like your public profile, so I have everything set on public, but nothing I've done there has ever really grown anything for the most part. That seems to be more of like a friend to friend type of app. It hasn't done much for me, and I just always get solicitations from meeting girls in my neighborhood that and singles that are interested in meeting me. And I'll tell you, I've tried to talk to these people, and none of those singles seem to be actually interested in meeting me. So I'm kind of disappointed because I feel like I've been lied to, and I just feel like that's not fair. So that's my thought on Snapchat. Now, TikTok. So TikTok is supposed to be huge for artists, and for some it is. And I don't know, maybe I'm just too old or can't figure it out, or maybe I'm not willing to put in the hours that it takes to put together a quality video. I mean, I do put time into my videos, but there's some people that seem to put a lot of time into really editing and lighting and staging equipment and making sure that audio is in sync with certain things. And I'm just not that person. So I do share a lot of my stuff on there, and I'm testing different things. Like I'm testing posting like 6, 7 second clips that are just straight without any cuts, and just adding little music. And those seem to be something to get a little more response, maybe just because they're shorter and not as long, more so than the montage videos. Because that's another thing. Instagram, the Reels, is something that I enjoy doing, putting together the videos. But I've noticed with that too, and I like those because you can add the music to it, so you can create this ambiance, this experience that ties together for creatives. But I found that the videos that are shorter in one continuous clip seem to do better than the ones that are composited, which I think the composite videos are pretty cool when I'm showing like different angles of my coffee table or different shots of my work being created and then the final product and stuff. But I don't know, the algorithms seem to maybe punish me for that. So TikTok, I'm only at like 800 people. I'm trying to grow that though. And by the way, anybody watching this, you can go to CariniArts.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and it'll show you most of my platforms so you can follow me. So I am still using TikTok because I do see the value, and I am trying to grow from there, but it's taking some time. So back to YouTube. So I had mentioned why I love YouTube, but the thing I also love about YouTube is the new Shorts feature, and that has been helpful in me growing my following. I'm still not to 1,000 people here yet. Once I get to 1,000, I'll be able to do my live feeds on my phone, which I actually feel will be better quality than doing them on my computer. But I don't have 1,000 followers, so I can't do live feeds here. And same with TikTok, I don't have 1,000 followers there, so I can't do any live feeds there either. But once I hit that, I'll probably start doing that. And then once I can do live feeds on my phone on YouTube here, then I can bring you around the studio and we can actually look at stuff. So right now I'm not going to carry my computer around. So that's one of the obstacles right now, is that once I hit that threshold, hit that benchmark, then I can start moving around the studio, showing you different things, and maybe that'll get some more engagement. But I do just like our sit and talk chats too. So Pinterest. Um, I can't say that I fully grasp Pinterest, but I do share things onto Pinterest. I don't directly post there as much as I used to because I didn't see anything from it. But my business is connected to Pinterest, and I do save things to different folders in Pinterest of mine. Whether or not anybody sees them, I don't actually know. Um, so speaking of ones that confuse me, Reddit. I do not get it. I do not understand it. I have tried to understand it. I have tried to post in it, and I think it bounced back or like wouldn't even post. Like that's how little I get it. So I don't know. Maybe Reddit's for geniuses, or maybe I'm just something special because I cannot figure out Reddit or how Reddit works. It seems to have a huge audience for those that know how to use it, but maybe I am just not part of that club. It's like Club 33 at Disneyland, just not a member. So it is 33, right? I think it's 33. So LinkedIn. So LinkedIn seems to be like the primary solicitation site of salespeople trying to reach out to you. But I do post things on there, and I have actually had some people reach out to me with interest from there. But I do try to tag things there that I think could be of benefit. But I figure, hey, if I can just copy a description and post it into these pages real quick, no harm, no foul. Let's just do that. We'll post the photos again. We'll post a similar description, maybe change a couple things. But I do periodically post on LinkedIn as well, although I don't know that it has tremendous benefit, but it does seem to have some. So some of the more obscure platforms, Nextdoor. So Nextdoor, I created a business page for that, and my business page, I post things, zero response, zero views. Then I started posting on the personal page. And so what I'll do is I'll just go on there and I'll be like, hey, everybody, I just wanted to share like this new piece that I was doing. Like today, I posted something, the coffee table that I just did. And I said, hey, some of you may have seen me working on this outside. So I just wanted to post the final pictures so you could all see. And it's trending. It's at like 400 likes on Nextdoor, which is a lot for a platform like that. And then once it's trending on Nextdoor, sometimes people get hit with emails that say, "Hey, this is trending," and some of the other platforms do that too. I think what are the other platforms that do that? A couple other platforms do that too because I've seen my stuff in actual emails, which is kind of a cool thing because it's just, hey, it's extra visibility, extra marketing. But yeah, a lot of engagement from next door. So that's the app where neighbors are usually just bitching about other neighbors, like, "Hey, somebody's dog shit on my lawn," or like, "Hey, what do I do about my neighbor painting their fence, or what do I do about this being 3 inches too high?" And it's like, my God, if people could just talk to each other instead of just using this as a page to gripe about all the things that their neighbors do. So I try to go on there and just post something positive, but I don't make it too pitchy. I'm just like, hey, here's my thing. And then there were a lot of comments in it. So then in the comment thread, I was like, oh, somebody asked, so my website's this, and these are my pages. And I just a couple weeks ago generated some business from there and seem to be generating more. So I think it's because it's a neighborhood app. It's like, hey, I'm a local artist. People want to support that. So even some of these smaller, more obscure apps can be a benefit to you. So it's not always the size of the app or the size of the reach. If you can have 10 people contact you and those 10 people want to buy something, is that not more valuable than reaching 100,000 people, but not one of them reaches out to you? So it's all a matter of perspective and context, but all of these platforms can have value. So again, so now we're getting creative. So Bumble and Tinder. So for those of you that know me and follow me, for whatever reason, and I say whatever reason, but you may know the reason. Apparently, I absolutely suck at dating and meeting people and relationships. But so I am on there almost consistently, and I have my description. I'm a full-time artist, so a lot of my pictures have my art in it. And then I have at the bottom, like, and if you want to check out my work, my website is this, and my page is this. If you want to follow me, so it's not that I'm using it to actively push my work, but it's like, hey, like if people want to see what I do, here you go. Like this is who I am. So you can come see my stuff here. And it has led to both of those, Bumble and Tinder, leading to a number of sales. So you never know where sharing your work is going to lead to business. So I got a lot of business, no lasting relationships, but a good amount of business. So hey, maybe that's even better. So hey, if you can make a couple grand off of Bumble and Tinder without having to prostitute yourself, but no judgment to anybody that is in the sex work field. And I guess that brings us to OnlyFans. So OnlyFans apparently is also for artists and things of that nature. So there are a variety of things that you can do on there. So it's not just for sex work, but no judgment to those that do. That is not one that I am currently on, but I do frequently make little jokes about it. And I do have my shirts that say, please buy my art. I'm not built for OnlyFans, but I do have a very, very interesting and cool collaboration coming up that is going to involve OnlyFans, but that's all that I'm going to say at the moment. Now, the last thing that I'll mention is just e-blasts. Um, so I use MailChimp, and MailChimp, the cool thing about that is that you can have up to, I think, 1,000 contacts for free, and you can send like 10,000 emails a month for free. And I love that plan. I use that plan because I fall beneath that threshold. Now, once you hit 2,000, like once you get to 2001, the cost goes like way up and it makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I almost hope that I stay under the 2,000 for that because it's working for me right now. But I do find that, again, people that sign up for my newsletter, they're people that go to my website, they're people that are organically interested. And I find the newsletter feed crowd, the people that look at those, are oftentimes a buying crowd. And my gallery said the same thing. They don't do a lot of social media posts, but they said that their newsletter is often what generates a lot of business. So that's interesting. So I think it comes down to knowing your audience, and your audience may prefer Facebook, or they may prefer Instagram, or they may prefer Twitter, or they may prefer LinkedIn. So you never know where these people are going to come from. So if you haven't already, test them all out, try them all out. And if one starts to take off more, maybe you give that one a little more love, but you don't completely neglect the others. Because if some of these other ones shut off, or something happens, or you get blocked, like I always get blocked, then you still have your backups. Because I do, being someone that isn't investing in advertising, I do depend on these free social media platforms for generating business, but they absolutely can. And if you minimize your overhead and live a simple life, you can make it possible with these very limited resources. So I think that 31 minutes and 15 seconds was enough of me going on and on. But anyone, feel free to leave your comments, share your thoughts, share my videos. I have a bunch of others if you haven't checked them out. But go to CariniArts.com, scroll to the bottom of the page. You can find all of my social media platforms so you can follow me. Feel free to share my YouTube videos, in particular, trying to grow those. And check out all my other artist talks and let me know the things that you want me to talk about here on YouTube, and I'll cover those in my future artist talks. So have a good day. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's nice to finally have somebody. So I'm telling you, like, I don't think I've ever been more excited to have one person here. So all these other platforms I mentioned, like having like 50,000 followers and 20,000 followers, and I'm stoked to have one person here on my YouTube feed. So there we go. Maybe we could blow this video up because I was so excited to have one person. So we'll see. Have a good one.